Aloha there. My name is Darcy Frankel. I'm coming to you from my home office here in Kauai. Some of you may know that I'm an experienced cleansing and rejuvenation specialist and a spa owner. I own the Hanalei Day Spa here on Kauai. In this video, I'm going to talk about the different types of toxins your career may have exposed you to. I'll get really granular with 10 different careers and the specific toxins that they've been exposed to and different types of potential effects. Stick with me to the end because I'll share with you 2 special ways that you can assess your own toxic burden and some other ways to really efficiently cleanse these toxins. All right, now there are 4 things that you need to understand first before I go into these careers. The first thing is that there are 3 ways that we actually ingest toxins. The first one is through the air that we breathe. Now I'm talking about when you breathe in things like chemicals in air fresheners and toxins in fabric softeners, or when you walk by your neighbor's house and smell the fabric softener and detergent, mold, or pesticides that come in on the air. These are just to name a few of them. Now, the second way that we consume toxins is through what we eat. Now, I'm talking about the things that we drink, how toxins are grown into and sprayed on our food these days. Growth hormones are injected into meat products if that's in your diet. Even medicines have toxins in them. Okay, number 3 is through our skin. Do you know that your skin indiscriminately digests what and consumes what is put on it? In fact, the NATO report says that we consume 100 times more toxins than we could ever drink in a day because our pores are open and we're really taking those in, as well as breathing toxins in. So these are the 3 ways that we actually consume toxins. So the second thing is we don't know when the effects of these toxins will show up. For instance, one time I went to my orthodontist, they put these chemicals in my mouth to make a retainer, to make a form for a retainer, and then I got a headache. That was immediately. So sometimes the effects of these toxins might show up immediately, although that's kind of rare other than rashes or instantaneous effects. Frequently, these toxins and combinations of toxins build up in our system, and the effects may show up years or even decades later, as in Hawaiian surf legend Rel Sun. As a child, she played in the DDT spray with her friends, and years later, she ended up developing breast cancer. She battled with that for 15 years. So the second thing you need to know is we don't know when the effects of these toxins will show up immediately or decades later. The third thing that you need to know is that there are 7 categories of toxins and 8 ways that they actually affect us. Now I'll just go through them, but there are other videos that I talk even more about these if they're interesting to you. First category is food toxins. We actually create these ourselves through improper food combining, eating too much, eating too late at night, having meals too close together, and so on. Category number 2 is toxins in our air, water, food, and medicines. Now, these are not naturally occurring. These are things that are like pesticides that are grown into, genetically modified into our food, injected to our food, sprayed on our food, added to our medicines. Category number 2. The third in the 7 categories of toxins is toxins that occur in nature. Mycotoxins and mold is a prime example of this, as are lectins and ciguatera found in fish. You get the idea. These are toxins that occur in nature. They're naturally occurring. Category number 4 is electromagnetic toxins, or EMFs. These actually interfere with our own energy, our mitochondria, the building blocks of our DNA. Category number 5 is chemical, petrochemical, and heavy metal toxins. These are found in our everyday products. It is all pervasive and everywhere by now. Category number 6 is mental and emotional toxins. We obtain mental and emotional toxins from being in abusive relationships, people who are abusive, bullying, manipulation, coercion, even examples of stuffing and suppressing our feelings are subtle examples of mental and emotional toxins. Category number 7 is bacteria, viri, yeast, and candida, things like that. These can be detected and eliminated. All right, so those were the 7 categories of toxins. Now, the 8 ways that these toxins affect us. Toxins drastically reduce our own ability to detoxify, ironically. Now, the more combinations of toxins, the worse they are in the body. And toxins are cumulative. Second way that toxins affect us is they cause organ damage. Toxins can cause damage to every single organ in the body. Third way is DNA damage. Toxins actually quicken aging, which is why we want to cleanse them and prevent toxins from getting in our bodies in the first place. Fourth way that toxins affect us is they change our DNA. Way number 5 is they interfere or block with different hormone processes. They are endocrine disruptors. We talk all about this. I talk all about this. Particularly, there are certain chemicals like laundry detergents and fabric softeners and even heavy metals that are block and change hormones and that are endocrine disruptors. The 6th way toxins harm us is that they damage the actual membranes of our cells. Category number 7 is really interesting to me. What happens is certain toxins and categories of toxins actually displace different elements or minerals in the body. I'm going to be talking about this in an upcoming video called Heavy Metals and Minerals. It'll be called something like that. This is why when I work with people and help them to eliminate heavy metals, we always help them to get their mineral balances just right. The 8th way that toxins harm us is they actually poison enzymes and bacteria. So they kill different groups of enzymes and bacteria in our body so that they can't do their work. And we all know we have good bacteria on our skin, in our vagina, in our colon, in other places as well. So these bacteria get really harmed by certain toxins. Alrighty, so just to recap, that was the 7 categories of toxins and the 8 actual ways that toxins affect us. Now we come to the 4th thing that you need to know before I dive into the potential toxins that you've been exposed to in your career. Now remember, stick with me because I'll show you different ways to detect these toxins and some great and efficient ways to cleanse these toxins from your body. All right, the 4th thing that you need to know is it all begins before we're born. Recent advances in science show that stress and toxic chemicals, heavy metals, plastics, pesticides, etc., that you're exposed to will affect all future generations. In fact, everything that you do is stored in your DNA and passed down to your descendants. Think about how our ancestors have survived intense experiences, emotional, stressful events and circumstances such as natural disasters, accidents, droughts, famine, even stressful pregnancies, divorces, rape, the Holocaust, mental illness, and the PTSD that goes with all of that. The experiences and circumstances that our grandparents were exposed to, and our parents and their parents, for example, drought and famine, altered their DNA and subsequently our DNA. This unexpected phenomenon has given a rise to a whole new field called transgenerational epigenetics, or the study of inherited changes. Now, these changes can't be explained by traditional genetics. Now, one example of this is Teflon. Do you know that Teflon is extremely persistent in the environment and in the body, and that it will be around for 20,000 5 generations. Now, just to recap, these 4 things that you need to know is that we ingest toxins in 3 different ways: through the air that we breathe, through what we consume, and what we put on the skin. Number 2 is we don't know when these toxins will affect us. Number 3 is that there are 7 actual categories of toxins and 8 ways that they affect us. Number 4 is that it all begins before we are born. All right, now I'll talk about the 10 different careers and the ways that we're exposed to toxins through them. But keep in mind that there are some categories that I won't focus on in this report at all. For instance, I'm not really talking about mental and emotional toxins in the workplace, or food toxins, or toxins that occur in nature, or bacteria, viri, yeast, candida, parasites. I will be focusing more on toxins in our air, water, food, and medicine. And then category number 5, chemical, petrochemicals, and heavy metal toxins, and EMF make a cameo. All right, now the very first career is cashiers. Cashiers actually handle thermosensitive paper receipts, which are known to cause cancer. Now, mixed with hand sanitizers, exponentially, like 100 times, increases risks of cancer. Now, Dr. John Warner of the Warner Babcock Institute for Green Chemistry says there's more BPA, which is bisphenol A, in a single thermal paper receipt than the total amount that would leach out from a polycarbonate water bottle used for many years. Now, BPA is the all-pervasive breast cancer-causing universal sterilizer. It lowers fertility rates, even in trace amounts. In trace amounts, it could even cause reproductive harm, cardiovascular harm, neurological, and immune system problems. And use of hand sanitizer with receipts allows this cancer-causing toxin to be absorbed 100 times across the blood-brain barrier. Now, if this concerns you, and it should, I share the video I made on this topic called Receipts, Hand Sanitizers, and Eating, the Triple Whammy. I'll share that below. All right, now common products that contain BPA include items in plastic containers, canned food, toiletries, feminine hygiene products, thermal printer receipts, CDs and DVDs, household electronics, eyeglass lenses, sports equipment, and dental filling sealants, just to name some of them. Now, it's worth noting that BPA-free, if it says BPA-free, usually they merely replace the BPA with BPS, or bisphenol S, or BPF, bisphenol F. All right, so that was cashiers. Now, pilots, flight attendants, and flight crew, these are in-flight hazards and some solutions. This is an excerpt from day 29 of my Serious Cleanse 30-day challenge. The first study says U.S. flight crews have had higher cancer rates than the general population. Wait to hear how much higher, like 50%. If cancer rates are higher in flight crews, it stands to reason that they're also high in people who travel frequently. Air travel is definitely convenient, but there are some serious health hazards that are associated with flying. In fact, a study recently published by Harvard revealed that cancer rates are a whopping 50% higher in flight attendants. Oh, by the way, in all of this, I have actual references to the studies on my blog post, which I will also put in the bottom. So this Harvard study that I'm quoting from, boom, it's there. I believe there is over 20 references at the end of this. This study by Harvard revealed that cancer rates are 50% higher in flight attendants than a similar group of women who are not flight attendants. In this interesting study, data from 5,300 flight attendants were compared to a group of 2,700 people from very similar socioeconomic backgrounds. The study also revealed substantially high rates of other health issues and disorders, including anxiety, sleep disorders, many different types of cancers, pneumonia, chronic back, neck, wrist, and arm pain, chronic sinus infections, and more. The study also revealed that there were other significant reproductive implications in the in-flight crews, such as miscarriage, premature birth, fetal abnormality, and infertility. Oh my gosh, I wish they could all do my Serious Cleanse 30-day challenge. Now, it's also interesting to note that these in-flight crew who were studied also had high rates of illnesses despite an otherwise healthy lifestyle. And here's a quote. It said, "The elevated cancer rates were observed despite other indications of good health behaviors, such as low levels of smoking and obesity." These female flight attendants also had elevated breast cancer rates, about 50% higher than the general population control group. Another quote says, "Cancer rates in male flight attendants were nearly 50% higher for melanoma and about 10% higher for non-melanoma skin cancers compared with men from the general population group, according to this finding." The longer their careers, the higher their chances of developing cancer, according to this study. And then it goes on to say that these study findings also apply to frequent travel passengers as well. All right, now these are 7 ways that people are exposed to toxins when they travel. I call this Travel the Toxic Skies, 7 ways we're exposed. Damaging TSA x-rays, so exposure to radiation, or the backscatter machines, which are even worse, that like disrupts your DNA. Deadly fume events is number 2. In-flight pesticide usage, yeah, that's a thing, and it's called disinsection, where they literally spray pesticides on the cabin inside. Circadian disruption and overstimulation of the nervous system due to the engine vibration. Thing number 5 is sluggishness of the whole lymphatic system and digestive system and circulatory systems from a lack of movement in flight. 6 is toxic lighting, which definitely has its effect on our brain and nervous system, our pituitary gland. And number 7 is the onslaught of germs due to recycled air. So air travel adds to our toxic burden in all these ways I mentioned. And to quote a pilot, he says, "Flying wears out the body. The pressurization followed by depressurization, repeatedly breathing recycled air, fume events, time spent at 30,000 feet with gamma rays, exposure to radiation. It results in circadian rhythm disruption and dehydration." Now, if you're a flight crew, a TSA agent, you may want to seriously consider another job. If you're a frequent flyer, you probably are concerned about the negative effects of flying and want to take some measures to counteract all those. So I will be making my travel hacking report available with things that you can do to counteract that. Obviously, this one I'm doing a little differently. I'm actually going to talk about the toxin first and then the different careers that it's associated with. And the toxin is asbestos. When asbestos fibers are inhaled, what happens is they become lodged into the actual lung tissue and it causes scarring. It is known as asbestosis. The scarring can make it difficult for people to breathe because it prevents the lung tissue from expanding and contracting the way that it normally would do. Smoking makes it worse. Now, asbestosis takes between 10 and 40 years for symptoms to show up. Many cases actually originate from workplace exposure before they started to regulate it in the 70s. The symptoms of asbestosis include shortness of breath, wheezing, dry cough, and even swelling of the face and neck. Like I said, this disease can sometimes take decades to show up, and it can be life-threatening. Occupational asbestos exposure is the #1 cause of mesothelioma. There are more than 75 occupational groups that exposed workers to asbestos. I'm going to name 5. The construction worker, firefighter, industrial workers, mechanics, foremen, trade laborers, chemical workers, and machinery operators, the power plant worker, and the shipyard worker. The next category is cleaners or janitors or house cleaners. A study shows that cleaning is the new smoking. In fact, this study goes on to say that house cleaning with conventional chemicals is the equivalent to smoking a pack a day 10 to 20 years on respiratory health. People who use these chemicals absorb them through their skin and also inhale them through their lungs. They inhale the fumes. Now, personally, I use non-toxic cleaning products in both my home and my business. I kind of pride myself on having a green business as much as humanly possible. Now, my go-to cleaning products are literally vinegar and water in a spray bottle and Bon Ami. And sometimes I'll use diluted hydrogen. I actually have 11% food grade hydrogen peroxide. I buy it by the gallon, and I'll dilute that when I need more heavier disinfecting. These 3 cleaning agents, actually vinegar and water and Bon Ami, cover all my cleaning needs. They clean well, they clean efficiently, they don't leave any chemical residue behind for my pets to ingest or the children who are super close to the floor to ingest. And I don't have to worry about them affecting my health down the line. I highly recommend you switch to chemical-free cleaning products. Next category, cosmetologist, hairdresser, and salon toxins. Now, I got a haircut the other day, and I was reminded about how salon workers and patrons both breathe in the air and absorb these dangerous toxins during routine salon services. In fact, most places on the mainland have recycled air. At least we have open, fresh air here on Kauai. But I came home and I took binders to detoxify anything that, I might have breathed in. Salon workers absorb many of these toxic chemicals through their skin, and they inhale the fumes from hair dyes, hairsprays, and other nail products, inhaled directly into their lungs. Now, salon workers are at even greater risk because of their continued excessive exposure. Remember, combinations of toxins, combinations of chemicals are far worse than one exposure. In addition, anyone who's in the environment, like I mentioned, is at risk, and anyone who comes into contact with an exposure or touched an item. So for instance, the transfer could occur, through a brush, a cigarette, a drink, or food item even. Hair dye. It has long been known to cause acute leukemia, bladder cancer, breast cancer, blood cancer, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are reports of adverse health conditions of salon workers. This one really hits home for me because we had a very important family member who was a cosmetologist. She was a house cleaner, and she also used Nice and Easy hair dye on her hair for many years. Sadly, she didn't know that many people have actually died from acute leukemia because they used Nice and Easy hair dye. It was so sad, and I feel heavy in my chest and in my heart as I say this. And I only share this so that we can really prevent others from being exposed as well. In their report, Beauty and the Beast, Women's Voices of Earth, detailed some issues and challenges faced by salon workers, including exposure to acetone, toluene, ammonia, and methyl methacrylate in their hair dyes and bleaches and permanent wave solutions and acrylic nail products. The report documented an increased risk of delivering low birth weight babies, miscarriages, or delivering children with cleft palates and other birth defects. Cosmetologists also experience a higher risk of depression compared to other jobs and have higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, presenile dementia, and motor neuron disease. I personally have known a handful of cosmetologists who've had different types of cancers. Do you? All right. The next category is dentists and mercury. Did you know that amalgam fillings, aka silver fillings, contain about 50% of mercury? Now, mercury is a known cumulative neurotoxin. Might mercury toxicity be the reason that dentistry as a profession has the highest rate of suicide than any other profession? It's a fact that there is no known safe level of mercury exposure. Yet, silver fillings are and have been commonplace in the United States and have been used in more than 100 million mouths. This is so despite the fact that time and time again, research shows that amalgam filling exposure exposes people to the harmful effects of mercury. I have another link here that talks about FDA hearings on mercury dental amalgam safety. Now, you know, mercury is so toxic that it has to arrive and leave in biohazard transportation containers with the skull and crossbones wrapping. You know, the FDA says that it's safe to put in your mouth, but once it's removed, it's placed in the same biohazard disposal system. My concern is that dentists are exposed to this neurotoxin day in and day out. Did you know that people who have 8 to 10 fillings have 100 to 200 more times of mercury after eating in their exhalation vapors than industrial facilities are allowed to emit? I got to thinking one day, what happens if you kiss somebody with 8 to 10 fillings, or sleep in the same enclosed room with them, or on a bus or an airplane or a restaurant? Remember exhaled vapors? Now, if mercury's in a person's saliva and that person gives their partner a passionate kiss, the person on the receiving end is going to receive a nice dose of heavy metal poisoning, don't you think? If you have mercury in your mouth, you really want to make sure that you have it extracted in what's called the safe way. Because if your dentist takes it out and doesn't extract it in a particular way, it will just reabsorb into your nervous system, into your brain. I have a link, and I have a link in my blog to make sure so that you can check out that your dentist is doing it properly. All right, solutions for mercury exposure. Number 1, replace those amalgam fillings. Talk to your dentist about using the SMART method. Number 2, if you've exposed to mercury or from toxic dentistry or from fish, medicines, or other means, you can cleanse mercury out of your system. I have a very efficient heavy metal cleanse in my 30-day serious cleanse challenge. And in the program, I really help you to prepare your whole body thoroughly, and I walk you through it every step of the way. There's a link to that below. The next thing is to keep a lookout for my upcoming deep dive on mercury called The 5 Ways That We Get Exposed to Mercury and What to Do About It. And finally, the best way to know if someone has mercury toxicity or any heavy metal toxicity for that matter, and remember, there's no safe level of mercury, is to use this simple test. is from this company that I've been working with for several years. It's called the 5 Strands Affordable Testing Kit. It's an at-home test where all you do is literally